media.org and sign up. Fairness and accuracy in reporting produces a lot of great media analysis and criticism, and a lot of it comes from Peter Hart, who is their activism director. This is a media criticism organization that has an activism director, and I'm pleased to introduce here with us tonight Peter Hart.
Guess I'm going last. Thanks everyone for sticking around and skipping dinner, it turns out, as far as I know. And thanks to David Swanson for really putting this together. I emailed David on Thursday night saying, why don't we put together this ad hoc conference on the war. And Friday, right about noon when we landed in Memphis, I got a call from David saying, here are the speakers, here's the room, here's the time. So I don't think he sleeps, but that's better news for the rest of us. The question we wanted to pose in having a conference like this is to say, the Iraq War is the most important issue of our time. The media reform movement we like to congratulate ourselves about as being one of the most important emerging social movements. What can the media reform movement do about the war? If it can't do much, then that calls into question what it can do at all. So when we ask that question, we have to look at what's worked. There have been a couple of things over the last few years that have worked. The Downing Street Memos campaign worked as a media issue. It worked because we encouraged people to write to newspapers, write to television stations, say, this is a story you should cover. It didn't work because the stories we generated were good. They laughed at it. They laughed at the people who conducted the research. They laughed at the people who conducted the public meetings about the Downing Street Memos. But it got into the newspapers. I knew it was important when a Washington Post reporter called me trying to figure out how a bunch of nobodies could put together a campaign like this. He was asking me, do you guys all meet together at a certain time? And are you all funded by the same organization? Those things have worked. I think impeachment is an opportunity that is very similar because it's an idea that's considered crazy by the mainstream media. So crazy that they can't write about it. The problem with it is that it's not crazy. And if they did write about it, they would find out that people don't think this is outside the realm of rational debate. The same thing was true of the Downing Street Memos. So we have these campaign opportunities that are presenting themselves. Norman talked about Sarah Olson. Who here can write a letter to their newspaper about Sarah Olson, encouraging them to write an editorial in defense of an independent journalist? Every newspaper in this country, it seems, took up Judith Miller's case on her behalf. Where are the newspaper editorials in favor of Sarah Olson? I haven't read them yet, but we can generate them. Where are the stories about impeachment? If we keep the heat on the media outlets, this will happen. So there are these issues that I think are emerging, and media reformers and media activists have to take this opportunity. Jeff mentioned marching on the Washington Post in mid-March. How many of you are from New York or the New York area? A fair number. Who would march on Fox News Channel and the New York Times in mid-March to commemorate the beginning of the media's war in Iraq? Who would join David Swanson in Washington in March on the Washington Post? How many of you live near a newspaper or a television station? The answer to that is everyone, by the way. Would you march on that television station? Would you march on that newspaper and say, this is your war? You're the ones who made this happen. That's the opportunity that's presenting itself to us today. And if the media reform movement is going to mean anything in the next couple of months, it's going to have to take on these challenges seriously. So that's our challenge. Everyone should enjoy the rest of the conference, and when we go home, we need to think about what we can do. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. So we ran a little past 7:30, and we haven't done any questions yet, and we're about 8 minutes before 8 o'clock. And there is a plenary session in the ballroom at 8 o'clock that we don't want to overlap with. So if anyone wants to do questions and answers for a few minutes, the speakers here will be glad to do it. But